this, guys. You'll be bored.
Don't look this long. We'll take this up. I want to hear what you say.
Okay. As you guys probably know, I am not Lewis. I'm sort of the sock puppet today because he couldn't come. And hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions and not lead you astray too far. But anyhow, Arca is basically a new group that's focused on OS2. Our focus is basically to bring everybody together, developers, users, and basically provide one-stop shopping for everything that's needed to keep OS2 alive with a focus on running on raw hardware. We fully recognize that virtuals make sense for a lot of situations, and we have the knowledge to handle that too. But we feel the best way to keep OS2 alive for as long as possible is to focus on real hardware. Now, we're trying to fill in the blanks in certain areas. As all of you know, ECS releases have a very long cycle. And you need updates. You need updated to applications, drivers, and stuff like that. Arca is going to provide that. David gave you a pretty good idea of what's in the pipeline, what's done, what's ready to be released, and basically the only thing that's holding it up is it takes a lot of time to start a company. Everybody says it'll be easy, but once you actually do it, you find out it's not. I told them it would take a long time. No, it won't be hard. And hey, I've done it before. I know it takes a long time. The idea is that we're going to have centralized distribution of updates and fixes, one-stop shop for support, and also and access to developers and so on and so forth. And we are focused on development, so hopefully that means we'll actually do something. And as I said, we're focused on running the OS2 on raw hardware. Any questions?
How does that fit with Mensis? Like, we go
well, we get fixes. Well, okay. Well, as Mensis, as you know it, doesn't exist. It's now XEU, and we're going to work. We plan on being able to work with XEU. No reason not to. As long as we can all come to an agreement, and we're all good people, so it shouldn't be too hard. It's just it's just details. But basically, Mensis owns Ecom Station. They're the guys that can do OS releases and distribute copies. Unless Arca by some magic gets an OEM agreement for OS2, it's not going to be distributing anything. It could, but it would be illegal. And maybe you can do it in Europe and get away with it. You can't do it in the US. And Arca is, despite the weird name, I did not get to help select the name. Of course, I didn't get to help to select the Ecom Station name. I just said I didn't like it. But now everybody's used to it. Except when they keep asking about Serenity. Yeah. Is Serenity still running development? I think so.
Website.
Well, you know what it is. The folks that ask this are the folks that are getting new hardware after running OS2 off in the corner for 15 years.
Yeah.
And they come out to see what's out because they need new hardware. And the last name they knew was Serenity, so that's what they go looking for.
Well,
so it was actually a good idea that you guys kept the name because they could find you.
I never really saw anything that talked about, like a public announcement that Serenity had sold out the Mensis.
It was quiet, but it was there. And also, you have to, it's like everything else. The internet's a big place. Things get said unless you have to be looking. And there was nothing that really needed to be announced because it was a slow process in some ways. Over time, Mensis helped more and more. At the time, they were more of a development shop. So they helped with the development. Roger did a lot of that. Joachim did a lot of that. They're responsible for a lot of the installer you see in 2.1. Me, I got to jump up and down until I told Kim Chung to do it that way all along. But they didn't listen to me, so they did it Kim's way for 1.0.1.1. But, so these things happen over time. And also the thing is, it really didn't matter to the end user. From the end user.
Well, it does if you want to know who to point to, who to direct your.
But my point is, the Serenity name still exists. Somebody goes Googling for Serenity. They find Mensis. They go buy their update. They install it. If it installs nice, they go away until they need more hardware. If it doesn't, they put in support tickets and you fix it, and the process works. You know, it's not like selling soda where you got to keep telling people they need to buy it. The marketing is just, it's important, but not that important.
Question, please. Regarding the raw hardware issue, is the potential obstacle that they're going to be using different CPU chips which have different instruction sets? Is that the physical problem?
No.
What is the problem?
Unless you're going to fund a very large group of developers on the order of about 1,000, that's not going to happen.
So what is the potential obstacle in the future for OS2
Which one would you like me to start with?
Well, yeah, we'll start at random. Pick one.
Well, first thing is, you know, the ARM chipset may supplant the Intel chipset.
Well, that's what I meant. So it's a different instruction set? Is that the problem?
But that's one problem. There's also this thing called hardware.
Wireless cards.
The buses, bit width, I/O structures. You know, it's just there's an infinite number of things that can make it hard. You want to know as to UEFI, GPT, the fact that somebody decided to stick a 2 gig video window to 512 megabyte range, just stuff. Yeah. The point is, the best thing to say is it's a general problem. You fix the specific ones you can. Things like when they take out 32-bit, when they decide to do Intel chipsets that no longer do virtual 8086 mode or 32-bit instruction set, then you're going to be in trouble. You will be running in a virtual if you want to run those two apps. Because the kernel is simply not going to be 64K unless you are independently wealthy like Mr. Balmer and want to fund the development. It's just not going to happen. There's no, you know, it's just too much work, and there's not enough people with the skills and interest to do it. Any other questions? Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it doesn't mean that we aren't going to be able to run OS2/ECS on raw hardware probably for the next 5-10 years. We may have to have the rules selected about which systems you run on. But, you know, I deal with industrial equipment, and some of that stuff still requires ICBus. And I can go out and buy ICBus motherboards if I need them with 16 serial ports, and, you know, my customers are happy. But it's not commodity stuff you're going to buy at big box store. And that'll be the same thing. Eventually, it'll be just a little bit harder to find motherboards that are sufficiently current that you actually want to run multi-boot so you can run OS2 natively on it. Yeah. But the time when that can happen at all is far away. Think about the fact that most of these boxes here, except for the UEFI systems that don't have a compatibility layer, they'll run DOS. And we're talking 30 years out. So, you know, it's a problem, but not a problem. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, time frame is 4th quarter of 2014. Here we are, as usual. But as David said, the website is within days of being live. You go look at it now, and it's pretty full. You know, they don't have the shopping cart running or anything yet, so you can't really order. But it's in process. Content's getting there. Over time, that content will expand. It'll be one place. If you go to Arca, you will be able to find what you need. You will have driver updates. You will be able to put your support tickets in. They will get answered. If you need support subscriptions, you will be able to get them and all that sort of stuff. And in terms of how things are going to be distributed, we're going to try to make it as convenient as possible. There'll be pre-built WPIs for those that need them. There's probably going to be more focus on RPM Young as we go, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the fact, those of you that say that RPM Young doesn't work, not a problem. We'll get it fixed. Just like ACPI got fixed, RPM Young will get fixed. Everything has a priority, and we don't have infinite developers and infinite resources. Yes.
So is this going to replace going to Mensis in your download section to get?
No, that's up to FCU. They have a lot of packages that they have the rights to sell. I can go to BMT Micro and buy DFC. You know, there's lots of places to get OS2 software. You know, you go where you'd like to go. It's the customer's choice.
You're not talking about getting the latest ACPI or something like that, is it?
That if Mensis wants that available, or XCU wants it available, they'll make an agreement. First of all, it's open source. They can always build their own release. A lot of what we do is open source. ACPI, sort of open source, sort of not open source because of the Intel license. That's the one we use. We don't use the GPL license for that. But that's actually sort of a requirement of the fact that the ACPI is required to be built with the DDK. So only someone with a DDK license is actually allowed to build ACPI. Now, you can ignore all that stuff if you want. And the chances of actually getting in trouble by ignoring it, who knows? But the point is, you choose not to ignore it. But if, it's up to XCU, and that's stuff that's Lewis and Menso's discussions. I don't make those decisions. And while I'm associated with Arca, I don't work for them. I may, but I don't. But they're my friends. Any question? Yeah, who's doing this stuff? Well, you've already seen presentations by a bunch of them. Lars may be doing a little USB stuff. David does a lot. David's our volume coder right now, and that sort of stuff. We've got volume coders on Firefox and things like Flash and all that, and OpenOffice.org. They're sort of a little invisible now because essentially, development stopped for a while at Mensis. And they weren't really talking to the community. And, based on what Menso tells me, I think we'll know a little bit more about what XCU is going to do because they're going to get a little more visible. Posted in news groups, people will be there answering questions and stuff like that. But I can't talk for them because, I know what I think they should do, but, it's their decision.
What is this Bitwise company like? Where did they come from? Who pays them?
Bitwise has been around forever. Sylvan Scher is the owner. They own Enjoy. They're a major developer of Firefox. Not sure exactly whether they're a major developer of OpenOffice.org. I'm not sure if Yuri's actually associated with them in terms of the business sense. Who pays who and all that sort of stuff. And the other thing, and also Bitwise Works is also Aora. What's his Swedish company's name? A-H-O-R-A? A-R-R-A? Aurora. I'm not sure how he pronounces it, not being Swedish. But anyhow, Bitwise Works is sort of a rebranding of the Aura company, and it's their OS2 arm. But what Sylvan does is he does a lot of embedded systems and things like that. He's put a lot of machinery in various companies that I've involved in helping getting the drivers just right, so it worked for that weird hardware that the customer selected and said you must run on. Because that's the way it usually works. It's just like end users go out and buy hardware and say, I need to run ECS on this, okay? These big customers that would do a massive search to pick a given chipset to put in a product. They go out for their embedded systems, they just buy whatever they buy off the shelf and say, well, I'm going to run OS2 on it, or ECS. And it gets fun. You get to do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Although you sound like you got a little bit more choice in the selection process than the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not enough.
Yeah, but it's just the way it is. You're the customer. You do what they want if you can. And the fact that it may be a little harder than it would be otherwise, cost of doing business.
Yeah.
So, like as you said, there are some new names, folks that, and the reality is there are only new names to you. There are folks that have been developing forever. For instance, Sylvan, he's been doing stuff for OS2 forever. He bought Enjoy relatively recently, but he's just been an OS2 business partner for a long, long time and done things I don't even know about. Yuri is the original MySQL ports, which we all used for a long, long time. Paul has sort of taken it over. And Yuri's now working on OpenOffice.org. People like Herwig, he's got his EPDF and all that sort of stuff. And he's associated with Bitwise Works. So they're both new and old. sometimes they're just, like I say, they're new to the users because you guys aren't developers. You don't speak to the developers in general. And a lot of them tend to hide in caves. And same thing with companies. In other words, Bitwise has been around forever, and you've been around forever, but for one reason or another, you never heard of them. And the way what Arca plans on doing is cross-licensing. Basically, and it just keeps things simpler. Rather than just verbal agreements and letting things happen, we just write it down so everybody understands it and everybody's comfortable with it. A lot of times, the cross-licensing will not even involve fees. It's just okay. It's okay for you to put this in your distribution, and some will involve funding. Really, everybody has different needs. Everybody has different desires. Some people don't want to be funded because they feel they're more free. Because once you're paid for something, they can sort of tell you what to do. But if you do it for free, you do what you want to do. And every OS2 user is different. Some are more different than others. But it's a good thing. Any questions? Okay, what are we going to do here in terms of what you can actually get? Well, you're going to be, in some ways, it won't be all that much different than what you could have gotten from Mensis back when they had a lot of new stuff to provide. You'll be able to get your packages individually if you need it. You only need one driver update. Everything else is fine. You just buy that driver for whatever it is. And then you'll be able to get them in bundles. USB is probably going to be something like that because just the way USB is, if you upgrade one USB driver, you really have to upgrade them all. Sort of like a match set. And it just works better that way because they're all tested and all that. And then there are the plans for software subscription service too, which basically means you prepay for the stuff. And you believe we'll ship the stuff out. And if you don't, or they don't, you stop paying. Now, obviously, you're going to be getting drivers and stuff like that, not a full OS2 release, unless we do some sort of cross-licensing with Mensis where, our subscription includes the next release of DCS. No. Anything's possible. We're still early in this because in terms of being a company, the idea has been around maybe 3-4 months. I can't really remember whether they started saying, we really need to have a company. And, but it takes a while, LLCs take a little time to set up. And also Lewis, because of his nature as a businessman, he does a lot of stuff that require real contracts. So, you have to go with the flow and sort of do it his way because he's the manager. He's managing director. He's running the show. We'll also, assist in software deployment, consulting, and that's more for the corporate customers to do this. Software resale by the rep shop, that's, again, that's back to the last page. Drivers, this, that, applications. We'll probably also even be able to distribute a lot of free stuff too. Things that just so you can go to one place instead of having to go hunt down certain widely used applications at Hobbs or OS2 site, we'll make them available at the web shop. Maybe there'll be a donation for the developer, but it'll be essentially free, a donation where. But a lot of the stuff we do is, it's open source, so anybody can build it. But what we do, and Arca does, as a service, is we build something, we provide something that quote unquote tested and should work, and support it and provide a certain amount of support if it doesn't work. And for that, you pay a little bit. For instance, the AHCI driver is open source. 1 or 2 people actually built it. But of course, that's great for the folks, and it's on Hobbs. But people still came to Mensis because that's where the support was at the time when the stuff didn't work. And those builds got support under the subscription agreements that were available for the developers that were at Mensis at the time. Now that's moving to Arca. And for those, for corporate customers to do something special, it'll be that. Whether we're going to do anything like do hardware integration in the sense, okay, you need for small end users where they want a system and they want something that's pre-installed. Probably not going to do any of that. The current resellers are pretty good. Like Neil can find you a system and integrate it, and you've got something that's ready to go and preloaded. You know, Arc Noah wants to be more of a development shop. Now, it doesn't mean we don't know how to do that, because that's what one of the things that Lewis does in his other life. If you actually look at his webpage, he is a system integrator and network specialist, as well as being a CPA. Bean counter, as they say. Any questions?
I have an observation on your site now. I put something in my cart that's got me to the section where I buy it.
As I said, it's moving along.
Yeah.
Can you put, will they take your credit card yet?
I don't know, I haven't tried to just put
Yeah, like I said.
But it's weird, it gave me the not sign over the cart, but it still put it in the cart.
Yeah, probably the way to turn it off. Again, you are looking at the pre-production version.
Yeah.
With luck, it won't take your money. Or if it does take your money, it will deliver. Thank you very much. Thank you for your donation. We need the support. Okay, strategic alliances, and it's just a partial list. You know, Bitwise Workers, we already know what they are now. NetLabs, you know, has always been a partner for the OS2 community for a long time. You know, provide us with a lot of bandwidth, a lot of storage, place for everybody to go complain with their tickets and all that sort of stuff. And a bit of management too, because they used to manage the ACPI development and stuff like that. But over time, it's been taken over by other people. And Rosenthal was Lewis and his brother. And ECO, we know. We all know Eugene, right? Don't tell me someone here doesn't know who Eugene is. Please don't.
He's done a good job.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
He's not in the cave.
Yeah. And, you know, we left you out because you were here. Yeah. Alliances are where you find them. And, you know, we sort of expect, these are ones that are sort of already in place more or less formally. You know, we expect to have an alliance with XU2. Any questions?
What is the alliance with NetLabs? Because I haven't seen the leadership of NetLabs showing on the community or communicating. Where Adrian is not showing.
You don't need to talk to be useful.
Yeah, but so he's there, so it's moving.
NetLabs basically has close to 100% uptime. Both things, when they don't work, they get fixed very quickly.
Okay.
He provides bandwidth. He provides lots of storage. No. He does, and that's what counts. You know, it's easy to talk. It's easy to ask. It's a lot harder to do. And the same thing goes with what you've done with GitHub. You know, You've done a lot, and that's all good stuff. And you did it, and you know, we'll see. Hopefully, this will actually give a couple people the incentive to go out there and grab one of these things, build them, and add features they like. And, you know, do the learning curve that it takes. But you can't, you know, you can lead people, but you can't force them to do anything. Any other questions?
Where's this company incorporated? In New York or Virginia?
Delaware.
What?
Lewis being a CPA, it's Delaware.
Oh, Delaware.
It's also in terms of the reason for I was given for Delaware because he actually lives in Long Island and Virginia. He's got offices in both places, he's got houses in both places, or something like that. But he likes Delaware for incorporation because basically, since almost the vast majority of corporations are incorporated in Delaware, the corporate law is very, very stable and understandable, at least to a lawyer. Whether that's really true or not, when somebody has to go to court about something, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's a very uninternational view that American corporations are in Delaware. International corporations are in New York.
Yeah, that's probably true. It makes more sense. Although it seemed like a lot of them tried to disincorporate and move to Europe until they changed the tax law.
London. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were trying to get away with taxes, then all of a sudden IRS said, no, you're not going to do that. So
Yeah, the taxes thing. But
when it comes to money, we're going to make a change.
But when it comes to a lawsuit, you really want to be in London.
Yeah, better.
Because it'll be decided under British law.
Yeah.
It's not, and if you're in the United States, under New York law. You don't want to be something else.
Yeah. Actually, my theory is, you draw up the contracts in such a way that you never really need to fight about it. Everybody, you can't predict the future, but I've never had a litigate over any of my contracts. I'm small, but I've had some fairly significant contracts, fixed price with very stringent demands because some of it's been aerospace. It goes, you build it, you finish it, you get paid for it 2 years later. If it doesn't work on launch, it's your job to sit there on July 4th and tell them why it didn't work.
Right.
Of course, it wasn't my stuff that didn't work, but I was there on July 4th when the telescope wouldn't spin because somebody put insulation on. That wasn't in the original spec. I thought they needed a little extra. I ran in, and this was a big old D-spin telescope. And it had something that looked like a tuning fork with the telescope. And the insulation ran into the tuning fork. Wouldn't turn. And this thing was unidirectional. We figured it out. We got it fixed, but basically beat on it a little bit until the insulation wore down. Anyway, you can go. No space shuttle was sent up there. But that's the type of stuff that happens. So I'm used to that sort of stuff. But it's just much easier not to fight about it. And that's more a matter of everybody understanding things the same way. And that's always my goal in contracts. Not so much that you can fight about it, but to make sure that everybody really understands things the same way. Okay, projects. Well, David told you all about it. Any other questions?
So do you think next year at Warpstock I'll actually be able to use wireless here, or what?
Be able to use what?
Wireless in this room?
Well, I can use wireless as soon as, and most people can if Todd leaves and turns off his hardware. An unintended consequence of technology.
Well, I have a ThinkPad, it's a pretty, it's not an oddball machine. I can't use the wireless on it.
I am.
Yeah.
In my computer? No, what do you mean? It doesn't work.
Well, the thing I can tell you, though, is this is not the place to get it fixed.
Yeah.
But you should have been on the OS2 wireless list when you first had this problem that you've had for how long?
Since I got the computer.
Which was how long ago?
Well, 3 years ago.
Okay, 3 years ago you should have showed up on the OS2 wireless list. And by now it probably would have been solved. Because we don't know what the solution is until we know what the problem is. Saying it doesn't work is like saying the guy, it's cloudy. It's a big world out there, and there's lots of types of clouds. I don't have, for me, I'm a little harsh about this, but there are solutions out there, and they've been there, and I just don't understand. I've yet to figure out why people can't find this stuff.
Put it the other way. What are the chances 1 year from now that a random wireless card is going to work on ECS?
Random, probably 5%. The major manufacturers, probably 90%.
Well, I asked Lewis when I bought this computer which of the three he would suggest, and I bought the one he suggested because he thought that would be supported sooner. Now you're telling me I'm an idiot for not. I mean, it's a pretty common piece of hardware, I think.
Yeah, but see, you don't even know if we could patch the current GenMac to work with that card. Yeah. There are an infinite way. There is a lot you can do with the current GenMac even without source. My friend Jerry Rash, who's a master dabbler with this sort of stuff, he will do things like he'll find out that, well, if I use the int8 debug parameter and connect it, and then immediately disconnect, wait 30 seconds and connect it again, it'll work until I reboot. Well, he used to do this with video cards. Back in the day when we never knew which image capture card would work, he'd go down to the swap meet, buy 20 of them, start swapping them in, fiddle with them until he found a subset that worked. And audio too, because that's his thing. That's what he used to do. Doesn't do it so much anymore, but he's still there and he's still a user. The thing is, like everybody else, he's busy, so you're not going to see him on the list. But I talk to him all the time. He's my good buddy. But And the thing is, I can bounce things off and get information, but the thing is, I can't, none of us on the wireless list can know you have a problem unless you show up. Yeah, I'm surprised Lewis didn't want you there, because the wireless list was around 3 years ago.
I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it either. Yeah, tough people.
Well, so what's the wireless list? I've never heard of this. What is it?
It's an email news list.
A listserv, one of those things?
Yeah, right.
Mailman.
So that's how you get a driver, is you go on a listserv somewhere?
No, that's how you get support to a wireless card that doesn't work, that may be able to be made to work with a little bit of tweaking the parameters.
Okay.
Maybe.
I would have had no idea.
Take a chance, post it clear.
Maybe. Tell us how to get on this list.
But you see, you had that thing for 3 years, and I had no clue you had a problem. If you told me last year at Warp Stock, I would have told you the same thing.
Well, I made the mistake of speaking to Lewis, I guess.
He was very busy or distracted. You know, I might not always give you the right answer either, but you know. I tend to be good at delegating when I don't want to do it myself. So any other questions for these guys?
Yeah.
There's one that's also on the wireless list that says about the
Google's always
like the framework that David is doing with the BSD code to run the network drivers, to run the drivers. If that framework is going to be open source for anybody to use it and let's say the driver there.
No, it can't be open source because as he explains, it's based on DDK code. Now, anybody with a DDK license is free to use it. Yeah. All that, find a copy of the DDK license and read it. If you can't, you can drop an email, I'll give you a copy.
No, I agree. Is there a chance anybody has a copy of the DDK license for you to validate so you can send the code or it's going to be
DDK license, DDK source code can only be used by people legally. Okay, you can do whatever you want. Okay, I'm not going to call IBM on it. But I do adhere to the DDK license because it serves my interest. I don't need somebody random getting mad at me because I violated their license. I don't gain anything. Okay? But the DDK license says that it is used only. First of all, you can't distribute the source. Now, yes, it's true that there is source code out there. You can find copies of DDK that's been uploaded to places. Is it legal? No. Is IBM going to do anything about it? Who knows? But it's not something I promote. And if you have a DDK license, you are allowed to use that DDK. It includes all the tools and all that sort of stuff to build drivers for OS only. You can't use it for other platforms.
Well, yeah, but these
libraries, but you're not listening. Those libraries are built. The binaries must adhere to the terms of library. You can give away the binaries, and those are freely available. But the only people who are going to be able to use them are the folks with the headers with the DDK and the proper tools, the compilers and all that sort of stuff. Now, it's a little better than that, in the sense that Open Wireless has a set of open source headers that support a subset of the DDK, and they may support enough of the subset and you can build them yourself. And we're already using Open to build this stuff because it does a good job building 16 and 32-bit drivers. It's actually what we use for the ACPI too. But, you know, it's not perfect. One of these days I need to do what they might call semi-flat stack. The ACPI has a funny flat stack. Normal flat stack is all 4 gig. Semi-flat is not all 4 gig. And that's great as long as no one else uses EPP to access stuff. Something off of one selector. That's what, you know, that's what's called use EPP as the work register. And all of a sudden they can't access data that they could access using EBS. Yeah, that type of problem. But that's a code generation problem because there's just no way to tell the compiler to generate code that way. And it's a hard enough problem that I haven't really had the incentive to fix it yet. I was hoping I could convince my colleague to do it, but he hasn't even needed for it, so he hasn't done it.
We've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, and, well, I think we are basically done. Any questions on this? Okay, now the other side of it is why we do these projects, so we can run our applications. And the type of things that we're working on, there's Firefox, Big East, we all want to run your browser. Didn't mention it, but you know, Dave is out of the side effect of the Firefox development is Dave Neo goes off and does C-Monkey and Thornburg builds for those folks that want that. Then there's going to be Open Office, and that thing is, from what I hear, it's close to GA. I don't know because I haven't had time to install it. I probably should because the problem is
Steve, is it based on the Open Office code or?
it's based on Apache Open Office. As soon as Apache Open Office appeared, everybody smart went over there and started using that stuff because it's got a better license and it's unencumbered.
Well, I found LibreOffice to be better than Open Office.
It was when Sun owned Open Office. Once Sun gave Open Office to Apache Office, the game changed that day.
Okay.
And I don't know if the folks that are doing LibreOffice have all moved over, or you know, just pride of ownership makes them continue because you know some people like their forks, even if there's no real benefit. It's just, that's fine if they want to do it. You know.
I understood they also moved all the OS2 specific code from LibreOffice did. That's what just
I don't know.
we talked about yesterday.
It's far, but I do know that somebody by the name of Yuri has commit rights to the Apache Open Office. We're okay. But see, that's the thing. That's one of the problems we have with development. Because we're limited, we aren't as visible as we should be to the open source community. Now, some of them are never going to take our inputs. They just don't want it. But other ones, if you are visible enough and you talk with them and you're good and you generate good commits, they'll take it. Like one of these days, and maybe Paul mentioned it, we may get our OS2 changes back into the Apache HTTP directory. Because Brian Harvard used to have commit rights back for the EMS, but he's not really doing that stuff. So he's offered to talk to people, and Paul, you know, will do the commits right. It's just not, you know, he doesn't have that much time. He's got this day job where he's got 200 people to manage. But summer's coming, and it must be almost vacation time, so we'll see what happens. And the other thing we're doing is, you know, we recognize that for a lot of users, some of the tools like the SAMA setup, the RPM run, command line, and all that, it's just hard for them. Even though you only maybe need a small half-dozen set of commands, it's hard for people to write those down and remember those. So, you know, the plan is for more GUI frames. Alex Taylor is working on one for RPM Yum, and I think he posted like 3 years ago. Thought of doing one for Samba 2, that a little bit more than what we currently have with the SEC. So we'll see. All time. You know, it's all a matter of, you know, what's got the highest priority and getting the people with the skills to do it. And it's always a balancing act. Any other questions on applications?
With Firefox, what's the deal with kind of having this, well, not maybe renegade's the wrong term, but it's, you know, if it's not a Mozilla-sponsored project kind of, is there any problems with that, or
no,
anybody's free to do this?
It's open, it's under the Mozilla 2.0 license. We're allowed to do anything we want. If we distribute, we are required to distribute our changes to their code. The Mozilla license is interesting because it only requires you to contribute back your modifications to the open source code. You can actually do proprietary parts if you want. You know, not what we encourage, but you know, companies have their reasons for doing what they do. You don't have to agree with them, but if you want the product, you have to go along with it. So it allows that combination. Now, the fact is that the Firefox Mozilla Foundation doesn't want our changes. But we've got a system that makes it fairly easy to drop in new versions, merge the changes, and all that sort of stuff. We can use Git for that.
You're only saying that is cut off because they might come and tell us we can't use the name Firefox.
They've sort of already done that.
I haven't heard,
But they would, or they may have changed that, you know, I know what you're saying, at one point in time, we had it called, you know, PW. Right.
well, that was Peter that really keep
No, there was branding issues, there was couldn't use their icon and all that, but I have a feeling that some of that's changed for the folks that are doing bills don't care. But, hey, you know, if we gotta call it work box, we'll call it work box.
I'm just saying, it's
So, Arc Fox. Or Noah Fox. Yeah, those things are minor details. That's not gonna stop us from doing the bill.
That's not the only thing that he really could, because of the license.
Yeah, but again, that's not really losing the case about the problem.
No,
There's something we may have to do to accommodate that. Yes.
But that's the only thing that.
Yeah, I agree. I just have to look at that stuff later. I don't, based on the fact that it seems like no one's complaining, and they got a lot of people that can see and look, I don't think it's a problem. And who knows, you know, maybe they'll start taking OS2 patches. The big problem is, the thing they don't like is this stuff. If it was just code, if platform equal OS2 and it wasn't too bulky and all that, they would probably take them. But we got big wads of stuff where it's if OS2. And it's in the middle of their common code. It's not in our OS, blah, 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 OS2 file.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder for them psychologically to accept the patches. Okay, let's see. What else? You got anything more down here? Nope, that's not.
Everybody's going to need more cross-platform.
Well, they are cross-platform. They run on Windows and Linux. And Android.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they run on iPhone.
Macintosh.
Yeah, different code base.
Apple won't permit Gecko on iOS. Apple won't permit Gecko on iOS. You can run iOS in your browser, you can use WebKit.
It's their sandbox, you know. I don't.
So if I have my phone, is there no way I can put that on there?
What? Right.
Yeah. Well, wait a second. No, you can jailbreak.
Yeah, you can jailbreak.
But you can't do it without violating the warranty. And getting them to say, bang, bang.
This is your one.
Yeah.
We had tried all that shit with the Jet Mac and stuff, but that didn't work. So the